This conference will now be recorded.
All right, outstanding. First up, approval of our prior minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those. Any questions or concerns regarding the minutes from our previous meeting? Hearing none, can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
So moved.
Hi, it's Liz. I second the motion.
All right, motion carried. Moving along, any modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, can I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved again.
Thank you, Paul. And a second?
Liz, I second.
All right, motion carries. Moving along to our next item, the ACF report review. Eric, what you got for us?
All right. So I did set the Excel version of the ever-changing ACF format. I think I have captured all of the prior requests on this now, where we are showing the current balance of each loan, as well as investment balances, changes in investment balances, any bank balances that we have, and some of the other information on top, as well as with the year tabs to make it a little bit easier to follow some of the more current recent loans. I have yet to come up with I think what I'll probably do is just if there's a comment from a committee member on the vote about monitoring or paying more attention to some of the more questionable ones. If you see the color code box down on the bottom where it says caution loan, and I guess I didn't match up the color properly, but that'll probably be what I'll use to target things as caution, or if I have a loan that is continually struggling to get a payment in on time, or it's causing me continual communication to try to collect payments, I will probably use that color to highlight those. But you can see we're what, about 28 loans right now, year to date. So we're pushing to go well above what we've done any other year. We're doing well right now on collections. One thing I did not have a chance to update on this one is the past dues. But since we did reset everybody, the only past due issues that we have now, as we're about 2 months into that, are the two borrowers that were historically very past due when we did reset. They have not been able to make anything happen. So probably the next meeting, at least one of those will be a discussion for the group as how we want to move forward with that. I will point out one loan on here. If you're looking at the screen, it's line 31. That is one that was approved, I don't know, probably about 6 weeks, eight weeks ago. That was for the twins, twin adults that were borrowing money to purchase the track chairs and a trailer that we did approve. I actually talked to the bank to see. The only thing we've ever used our bank for is vehicle loans. I did ask them, because of the dollar amount, if they would be interested in taking that one through a bank guarantee loan to help preserve some of our capital. And they did look at it, and they did agree to put that in the bank portfolio, using our interest rate, using all the terms that we would have used, so that there's no difference to the borrower from what it would have been with us or with them, but it did give us the opportunity not to have to write a check for $30,000 and take that out of our investments as they continue to show no growth. Luckily, you can see we lost $16,000 last month. So not a huge loss, but no growth. So might be hopefully that opened up a door for us to have a conversation with the bank to allow more non-vehicle loans to go through them. And I think that's really all I have. I think since our last meeting in July, the one legal action loan, the gentleman that stopped paying us on his truck conversion, all of that has been filed. So we do have our final judgment filed with the courts, and a general lien on him is out there. We do have another attorney now working on collection process and seeing if there's any way for us to actually collect anything of his assets to try to get some payment from that. But everything is out there, so if he did try to sell the truck or anything else at this point, there would be a lien out there ahead of him being able to do that. So we have some protection. Now it's just a matter of trying to collect some money.
Well, we appreciate your efforts in that regard, Eric. Just keep us posted, if you would. Any other questions, comments, concerns, compliments on Eric's work on the ACF report formatting? He's done a great job of addressing everybody's wants from the committee.
Yeah, I don't want to swell his head with at each meeting saying that it's much better than it is. So I'm going to reserve my comments. You praise him this time, and I'll do it next time.
Very good. We'll tag team. There you go. All right. Very good. Well, can I entertain a motion to accept the changes to the ACF reporting format as presented?
Your turn, Liz. So moved.
And a second?
Sure, this is Liz. I second.
Thank you, Liz. All right. Motion carries. Moving on to objective, I guess that's item number 8, CDFI discussion. I think we've got a little bit of new information there. Eric, can you fill us in?
Yeah, sure. So this has kind of been our ongoing topic about CDFI certification, and I did have an opportunity to talk with the director of the Oklahoma program as they are completed their CDFI certification application. They're still waiting on the final word from them, but just had a good conversation with her, got some questions answered, so wanted to kind of go over that information with you and get some direction and discussion amongst you guys on what we should do moving forward. Basically, the CDFI program, with the new information that I've received, there is what's called a small or emerging CDFI, and that is what, if we were to get certification, that's what we would be considered. That's what Oklahoma is. That's what all of the other two AT finance programs are considered. And under the small or emerging CDFI classification, there is not any matching requirement. That was always one of my big questions, was if we had to match funding, would we be able to even do that? Would we be able to match funding that would make it worth the process and the program? So with that being known, that there is no matching requirement, that really opens up in my mind the strength of becoming a CDFI. They are expecting up to $750,000 from their first funding if they are approved under that. So it's a very significant award, which goes a long way to boosting the program and sustainability. Of course, there is there's requirements with that money. It's not just to sustain the program. You do have to create some changes and growth in the program, but that's certainly worthwhile and easy to do, I think. So that was some good information. The other thing she talked about was that they actually hired a consultant to basically write their applications for them and to go through the process with them and for them. There's 2 steps. The first one is the technical assistance grant that you can receive. And you can receive that without being a CDFI. You get that with the hopes of becoming a CDFI, with the, I guess hopes isn't the right word, with the expectation that you will become a CDFI. And that's usually about $75,000, I think, that you get for more of operational needs, for expenses to help design your new program, what it would look like if you were a CDFI. They spent about $20,000 total in getting everything done for both the TA application and then the CDFI application, which seems like a lot of money, but I guess if the return is a total of $800,000, it could be worth it. I haven't looked through the CDFI application enough to know when that time comes, if that's something that we would need to do. But that is just a side note that she let me know about. So I think the strength of becoming a CDFI is there, just with the program funding grant, along with the other money that you can be exposed to from other CDFIs, from other banking partners, from a lot of other nonprofits that donate to CDFIs because of that certification, and the growing strength of the disability CDFI group, and additional funding that's available through that. So that's kind of the sales pitch for it. The struggle that we bump up against that's still there is that as we are now, we cannot become a CDFI because your primary business needs to be lending, and FAAST's primary business is not lending. So we would have to separate the loan program out through a different organization to do this. So that's where the discussion is. I know with some of the issues up here with, the other with Able Trust forming their own nonprofit and moving money over, and obviously there's a lot of steps that would be taken with approval processes, and that's where I'm getting held up because we don't have any records of our original funding back in the early 2000s that we can find. I'm going on a scavenger hunt tomorrow to our storage to try to find that, because we don't even know how the language was or what mechanism was used to bring that money to FAAST. If there's any legislative work that needs to be done, or if it could be something that DOE could approve. So that's kind of where we are with that. I don't, next steps, I think that's the obvious next step is probably trying to figure out how we receive the money and make some determinations from there. If it's, a big legislative issue, obviously time it will take to get us to where we need to be.
Eric, I have a question for you. When it comes to determining what an organization's primary focus is, how do they measure that metric? I'm thinking along the lines of if the loan program continues to grow, at what point could it be or would it be considered our primary focus, our primary business?
I think, and this is from when we looked at this a couple years ago, probably. I think one of the main reasons when I got kind of an opinion from CDFI was that our recurring money that we receive and our annual budget that FAAST receives from the feds and the state, none of that goes to the lending program. I think that was kind of part of it. All of the recurring income, other than what we earn in our interest, which is very minimal, is all going to programs other than our lending program. If I remember, and that was one of the key reasons.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we have a big chunk of money sitting there, but that goes to a small, that we get a lot more than that over time to run all of the other programs.
Right. Any thoughts or questions for Eric? I know we're kind of in a holding pattern, and it's going to be kind of a wait and see how some of these things shake out. But any input from anybody on that?
I think that certainly we are in a holding pattern, but I think that identifying a potential grant maker or grant writer to help with the application when and if we choose to proceed or are able to proceed with that, I think is a good idea. Obviously, this is a complicated issue, and if somebody has subject matter expertise, then we'd be penny wise and pound foolish not to use their services to kind of help navigate this, what will undoubtedly be a difficult application process. Seems like a good investment of funds as opposed to a poor investment of staff resource and time.
So Paul, just to clarify, you're suggesting at this point we just kind of try to identify the grant writer, but not necessarily engage with them until a future time?
Well, I think that we can get in touch with them if was it Oklahoma? If Oklahoma's told you who they use, then you can contact them and kind of get a ballpark if that's a $100,000 consultant or is that a $5,000 consultant, so that when and if we're cleared to launch, and obviously be forthright with the individual that we're not ready to pull the trigger at this time, but we are looking for sort of rough ideas about what that person's experience has been. Is this a long application process? Is it predicated on some approval timetable that only meets once a year? Or, I mean, we really don't have a whole lot of information. And so if we kind of pick their brain for now in preparation of knowing the landscape that we're going to have to navigate, or hopefully have to navigate at some point in the future. As far as the small and emerging CDFI status, that's a game changer for us because it does remove the barriers, or at least some of the financial barriers that we would otherwise have to confront. So.
Right. Yeah, I do have the name of that consultant, so I will, and they may be able to, direct it, depending on, Oklahoma said they use them because they do have significant CDFI experience and success in getting folks certified. So the question to them about us being lending as a primary business would be an interesting question to pose to them as well.
Can we put that down as an action item, Eric, and have
Yes.
you have an exploratory conversation with them and maybe come back to us with results?
Got it.
Perfect. Anything else on any of that stuff, guys and gals? Yeah, I agree with Paul that the fact that there's that emerging designation kind of gets me a little bit excited, because anything we can do to grease the rails is obviously good, and that sounds like a significant piece of the puzzle for us. So, good deal. All right, well, moving along. Item number 9, we've got a loan discussion for Owens. And Eric, it sounds like you've had some dialogue with the borrower.
Yes. So this is one that, Paul, you may have been here for the agreement with them. I'm not sure. It's one of our earlier loans that we ever did for Mr. and Mrs. Owens. It was for a Milford vehicle lift to allow them to lift Mrs. Owens out of her chair and into their vehicle so she could get out of the house and they could actually enjoy their life again, traveling and everything. And it was a huge benefit to them, and just I got to know the family a little bit during it. Really a life changer for them. Unfortunately, that piece of equipment is very rarely used. Not a very popular piece of AT, it does not seem like. And so when Mrs. Owens passed away about 1.5 years ago, the thought was to try to sell it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of cost into the loan with installation, and then installation again into a new vehicle that they received. So the loan amount certainly is not justified by the collateral for sure. And so she unfortunately did pass away, leaving Mr. Owens in a very financially difficult spot. I guess luckily for us at the beginning, Mr. and Mrs. Owens on their own were right on our borders as far as approval. So their daughter, who I had the most contact with during everything, did agree to be a co-borrower for them. And so now we're in the situation where we've got the only user of the AT is deceased. The father has no means of anything any longer. If you read the email, they financially support him. I have been out to see him probably about 6 months ago to get the equipment, 6 or 9 months ago, and everything what she says, I certainly believe from being out there. And so it leaves the daughter, who agreed to join the loan to give us the strength that it won't default because the mom and dad were borderline, to now leaving her fully responsible for this loan. They have paid, a few months, probably 5 months after her death, normal payments. And then we did reach the agreement last August or September for her to make $100 a month payments. We would list the equipment on AT list to try to sell it. She would try things to sell it as well, which hasn't. Our AT list, we've gotten a lot of hits, a lot of views, but not one person has ever inquired. I've asked some of the mobility dealers here if they would be interested in buying it, and they would not. So her request, obviously, if you read the email, is to be released from everything. We obviously keep the equipment. We sell it at some point for a reduced price, and take the mom's death into account for the loss that we would take on the loan. The total that we're looking at, they borrowed just under 10,000, 9,674, so 9,700. They currently owe us 5,700 is what they owe. And those are the details of it.
Eric, based on your your conversations with the clients, do you have a recommendation?
It's a tough one. I look at that 5,700 and say realistically we knock that down another 1,400, 1,500, so we're left with 4,200. If we sell the equipment, at a very steep discount. Obviously it's a loss to us. I also understand that she's not in. We're asking her. The father doesn't even know that she's paying this. He would be devastated if he knew that she was still tied to this loan. He thinks that it's, when he gave that back to us, that was the end of it. because his wife is no longer here to use it. So she's definitely stepped up, but she also agreed to step up, you know, in the legal sense. And it's my nice side says that we've done what we needed to do, and she's participated, you know, over and above what her initial thought was she would ever have to. You know, she was there to catch any late payments that ever happened. In fact, every payment I ever received was from her. I don't think I ever received a payment from the parents. And the mom was the one who really had the income from retirement coming in that no longer goes to him since she passed. So it's a tough situation. It's a tough call. I think it's our spirit of what we do. I think they've done what they needed to do, I guess. But from a lending side, obviously there's a different story there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that internally, I understand the altruism of trying to make it work, but I also recognize that we have an obligation we have a lot of loans out there, and we have a lot of people who are, you know, unexpected things happen. And so how do you juggle those two responsibilities? Because you can't just write loans, send out money, and then never get it returned. That's not the business model that we're in. So I think anything that we can do to minimize the impact upon the family is important. You said one of these things is a home generator, the other is like a car lift type of device?
Right. Yeah, which we have that. We have the lift. That's what we have to sell to try to, you know, to reduce the principal the best that we can. You know, the good thing is we don't, you know, any of the balances you see on the ACF report aren't all of a sudden going to go down $5,700. You know, nothing happens. The only thing that happens is that 12-month payments received goes down. We agreed back when we did the agreement for that it's 0% interest, so we're not earning interest on it.
And the daughter is one of the co-borrowers. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Eric, to clarify, the generator is still in their possession?
Correct.
Wasn't that a whole house generator?
No, it was, they paid, I think, $900 for it.
Okay.
It was kind of a collateral swap. They initially did, the Milford lift can also be used on a home base. And so that was a big chunk of the loan at the very beginning. And the home base could not go high enough to lift her off her bed. That was the main reason they needed, is more to get people from a wheelchair into a chair. So they basically returned that part and then purchased a generator. This was right after, whatever hurricane that was that came through here back in 17, maybe 16. When they had power outages and caused some serious issues for her. So they bought that to at least power, I think, a small AC unit and some of her medical equipment.
I mean, what we're actually presenting is that this is the exact position. This is why you have a co-borrower, because they otherwise wouldn't have qualified, I assume. And that's, I mean, it sounds terrible. That's the risk that you take for being a co-borrower. And I think she's stepping up to that. I don't think she's trying to get out from it, but I don't know that I don't know how we don't set at least an internal precedent of, okay, well, you borrow this much, but if anything happens, how do we enforce this with the next person or not?
Right. Yeah, and I think, I mean, for sure, the fact that it's a death of the user is I think the only changing factor here versus somebody that, it's a true default situation. Well, yeah, that's why we have you as a co-borrower, because we were worried they might default on it, versus the death. Now, that's something I guess we should think about.
Hi, this is Liz. I just want to throw out there that, I don't know what the answer is for this specific situation, but going forward, is it possible for the loan to become, say, a lien against the estate in the event that you have someone unexpectedly pass? I say that because where there are special needs trusts and Medicaid benefits, the trust is set up to reimburse any medical expenses that were covered by Medicaid, because the special needs trust is sort of its own entity specifically for that purpose. So I'm wondering if there's a way to structure this in the future to at least document the loans to the estate, should there be anything there to settle the deceased, affairs. So maybe those are in the loan documents, I don't know, but perhaps that would be helpful in the future. In this particular case, I don't know what typical lending practices would be, or how appropriate that is here.
So Eric,
do you have
what would
input
be
on that as far as?
I'm sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, go right ahead, Paul.
I was just gonna say, Eric, what would be sort of the normal course of events? I think I know them, but let's be explicit. Is that the beneficiary of the equipment passes away, the estate would become responsible for the debt, and it would have to either get expunged through probate, or, as Liz has stated, it would be a lien against the estate. Is that the normal course of events?
I would think so. I'm not 100% versed in that, but yeah, and I think, a lien against an estate is probably a separate step based on dollar amount, and everything else, because of, there's immediate legal fees and everything else that hit that as well. But
and I'm not necessarily even suggesting that in this case. I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an easy automatic way, or if it has to be done after the event. I would think. I don't think you can tie it in through initial loan documents, or that wouldn't be typical, I don't believe. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's just a right that every entity has, is to, seek resolution from an estate. As far as this particular situation goes, guys, my thought process is, as has been stated, we've got a responsibility as a program. We've got other people that need things that we want to be able to provide, so we have to balance that responsibility with, our overall objective as an entity is to help people as opposed to a regular for-profit corporation, which is just all about making money. And so, again, I think there's, we need to balance that. I would like to suggest, just for discussion, what about a third option of potentially offering some type of reduced payoff to the co-borrower, and so that we can hopefully walk away from this thing feeling good, but also not putting ourselves in a position to forgive the entire balance. And I'd like to add, before we discuss that possibility, credit card companies do that all the time, and and they're not charged with helping people. It's sometimes strictly a business decision, and so I would offer that up just for discussion. Hopefully somebody might be able to offer some good insight.
Yeah, I would add to that, even with like student loans with disability. Somebody goes on to disability, there's ways to get your student loans discharged. So there are things out there in the world, in the lending world, that show leniency in certain times.
And I think if ever there was a situation that warranted it, it would be one, such as this. We all know that the equipment is of no use to the co-borrower. Let me ask you this, Eric. At the time of her mom's passing, approximately the loan balance versus what we can get for the equipment, what do you think the difference would be approximately?
When at the time of her passing?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how much has she paid this down since her mom passed away and the equipment's been of no use to them.
So I just put up the loan. Oh, if I refresh it, I'll get signed out. But they were paying $185 a month for the loan, which went through. Then she passed, and then we started this back up in September. So there was about a $6,800 balance when she passed away.
And they have been making the $185 a month payments?
They had been, then we changed it to $100 a month, 12-month structure to give us time to sell the equipment, which hasn't happened. And then there was at the end of the agreement, there was not here's the agreement.
There was not a what if clause if it doesn't work.
Correct.
So basically, we're looking at either restructuring the modification agreement to this point, or does it revert back to the original terms after 12 months?
No, it does not.
So,
yeah, number 6 on what's on the screen: upon the sale of the collateral or 12 months from the date of this document, whichever comes first, the loan balance due will be reviewed and any further modifications will be determined.
and we've taken on the responsibility of trying to sell the piece of equipment as opposed to borrow?
Both. We took it, since he's here locally, I took it. So we have it here and we listed it on our AT list. And I reached out to some of the mobility dealers here locally. And then I sent her all of the, everything to post it to try to sell then and now. And I don't think that she has made any attempts to try to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that a mobility dealer is going to be reluctant to sell a used piece of equipment that's not in his or her possession. I mean, the liability there is just too tremendous. So you're basically looking for somebody who's handy, who has a need and sees this as the most economical way to satisfy that need. And then even then, it's an unusual piece of equipment, that sort of crane arm that's in a car. I think that's what we're looking at.
Yes. Yeah, the daughter lives in Oklahoma. She moved out there during the loan. She used to live down in South Florida. Now she's in Oklahoma.
And the father, husband is still here?
Yeah, he lives down in Crawfordville, just south of Tallahassee.
Well, guys, it sounds to me there's at least 4 different options here. One is to try to continue the arrangement the way it is. Another option is to cancel this arrangement and call the loan due and just see what happens. The other would be to forgive the loan, and the fourth option, some kind of compromise. Do we have any idea, Eric, about the financial resources of the daughter? I mean, are we even allowed to consider that at this point, or?
I don't. I could go back and look at what she was doing before she moved, but I know she's changed jobs. Her husband is military. That I know. There's actually a YouTube video of him watching their baby born on Skype or YouTube, I think, somewhere out in the world.
As if we needed more tugs on our heartstrings, right?
Right, exactly. So
yeah, I just forgave that loan in my heart, and just telling you right now.
Right? The day after 9/11,
Right,
oh
exactly. Yeah, so I don't know. I know if she gives any, insight as to what, they certainly are spending a lot supporting the dad. What do they say? Subsidized no less than $600 a month.
I'm going to make a suggestion that we take ownership of the device and continue trying to sell that. We modify the loan down to $2,400, payable at $100 increments for the next 2 years, and then it's forgiven. I think that forgives $3,000 worth of the loan. And I don't know how we do that within your system, Eric, but
yeah, I concur, Paul. When I mentioned the compromise, I was thinking kind of
she has an obligation, and we can be sympathetic and we can be understanding, and but at the same time, we do have an obligation to the next individual who approaches us. And right now we're not in the situation that we don't have funds to extend loans, but we don't know. But money is fungible, and we don't know where we're going to be in 5 years or 10 years from now. And it's a really bad precedent, in my opinion, to go, oh, it's a very unfortunate story. We'll forgive $5,000 worth of debt to somebody who consciously became a co-borrower. This isn't like she was stuck with this unknowingly. I grant you that the circumstances have changed, but I'm just, now that I'm the Grinch, you guys can, sure, that sounds good.
Yeah, no, Paul, I agree with you on all points. And when I mentioned, the possibility of some type of compromise, that's along the lines of what I was thinking, maybe half, and when you're in a difficult situation and you see the merits of both sides, meeting in the middle somewhere usually is what makes sense, in my opinion. And I would be comfortable with that. As comfortable, I think, as I could be with any of the possible resolutions.
Liz, your thoughts?
Well, I had also been thinking about, backing out the cost of, whatever we could resell the equipment of, and then for her half of the balance after that being forgiven. That's before you told me, though, that this was a military family. Now I'm feeling more generous, but I would be shocked that if this story were not out there, that people would not you know, want to help out. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I don't know. I would chip into that.
It is a possibility, Liz, but I think that's incumbent upon the borrower, not upon us. Because we don't want to set the precedent where we take on the role of trying to make your debt, you know, a wash in the long run.
That is a fair point. It's a fair point, yes. But yes, in general, I had been thinking half minus whatever we could hopefully resell the equipment for.
So actually what my suggestion was is that we basically just assume ownership, complete ownership of the equipment, and we try to move it on to the person who can use it either through sale or through device loan program or whatever we might do. But we actually take possession, and in exchange for taking possession of that, we reduce the amount. How much is the current amount due, Eric?
5,700.
So we're, you know, I was suggesting down to 2,400, which is $3,300 worth of relief, which is probably the resale value of that piece of equipment on the secondary market, at best.
Yeah, I don't know where that market is.
Yeah, I don't know where it is either, but I mean, it's a $5,000 item. So if you could sell it for whatever we can sell it for, yeah, that's probably $3,300 installed. But I think that's as close as I can get to you know, say $2,400, unless we want to say $3,600 and we give it 3 years. I mean, I don't want to increase their monthly out of pocket. That seems, that would seem like that's not very much help. But cutting 3 years off the back end of it, I think is. So.
I think 2,400. That's a 2-year payment, and I would encourage them strongly to put that out on Facebook and a GoFundMe, and I'd be the first person to donate and promote. So I think that that's an appropriate number.
Well, I will third that suggestion. Do we want to entertain a motion to send Eric forth with that offer to the client?
Yeah, I believe that's appropriate, and I'll make that motion.
Second the motion.
Very good. All right, Eric, you have your marching orders. We appreciate all your good work on this, and
Okay.
please keep us informed as to the response of the client.
Will do. Thank you.
Eric,
Hopefully it'll be met.
A loan modification agreement come forth.
Yeah. Also, if I could get information on what that piece of equipment is, I could certainly circulate that around, you know, the disability group that I'm, you know, connected to, and see if we can't scare up a buyer.
Okay. I'll send you some info.
All right. So
And
Eric,
Paul,
we'll
what did
see
you
a
say?
at the next meeting?
Say that again. I could not hear you.
I said, well, this will come back to us as a loan modification agreement at the next meeting, I assume?
Yes, I think, yeah, I'll just present that I've extended it. Is that what we're looking for?
I think so, yeah, and that they've accepted the terms, because otherwise,
Yep.
yeah, because otherwise we're kind of right back where we started. We can't, in my opinion, we just can't relieve it in its entirety. It's just
Exactly. Okay.
too bad of a precedent to be set. So.
Very good.
Well, guys, I don't know if we'll face a tougher one than that in a while. So, thank you guys for your good input on that. That's not easy, not at all. Any other further comments or questions regarding that issue? All right, hearing none. Next on the agenda is some grant information from Eric.
Yeah, and if it is okay with the committee, I'm going to take about 10 seconds to talk about number 10, the ACL grant, and move right on to the CBA grant, because there is some little bit of work, I guess, to do on that from you guys. So the ACL grant, if I sent an email out to you, we did receive the grant that I applied for back in May of 2018. They awarded the top 3 last year, and then came back now before the close of their fiscal year to award number 4, 5, and 6. So we did receive $625,000 from ACL. I do not, and the purpose of our initial grant was to expand our home modification loans by participating in an interest buy-down program with SELF, which is the Solar Energy Loan Fund. Our initial grant application was $70,000. We were awarded $625,000, and in that initial application, the actual operational costs to promote that program and to make that program work for the 1-year grant period was $75,000. So I'm not sure, since it's been a full year since the application, over a year, what the requirements will be to meet the initial grant obligation. So we have a conference call next week with ACL to go over that. So I will update you guys at the next meeting on what that new program will look like based on what we are required to do or what we are not obligated to do any longer. CBA Credit Builder Grant. So I did receive a second grant. This one's only $5,000 from Credit Builders Alliance, but they released some money for nonprofits to work on credit building activities for borrowers. So I did submit an application so we could start doing credit builder loans. The purpose of these loans, apart from a typical credit builder loan, will be for us to get a comfort level with some of the borrowers that we choose not to lend to today. But we, think that there could be some opportunity. So the way I submitted the application is that we will, for instance, we just declined a loan last week or 2 weeks ago for a borrower that needed a scooter lift on the back of her vehicle, and they were questionable, and it was a decline. Using her as an example, we could issue one of these credit builder loans for a 6 or 12-month term with a payment that would be structured as close to the payment that she would have or the borrower would have with what they initially applied to us for. And that would allow us to build a payment history with them. The goal is not to hurt people, but to help people and to build that up, that history with us. So the way the program would work is that, say they did a $300 loan for 6 months, we would take that $300 and deposit that into an account, into a FAAST account earmarked for them, and then they would make their payments to FAAST. Upon success of that 6-month period, all of the money that they put into that loan would then go towards the purchase of that AT, further reducing the amount that they need to borrow. In the event that they miss a payment, prior to them being reported 30 days past due, any money that they had paid into the program would be refunded to them, minus the interest that was paid. And then that money that we moved over to the account would just shift back and be loan capital again to use out. So it works again as a revolving loan. There's zero loss liability for us or for the borrower. And it will just go to helping them build credit on their credit report, because we will be reporting the loans, and building that comfort level that, yes, they can maintain this payment on a 6 or 12 month or whatever the term ends up being basis. Hope I didn't overcomplicate that.
I think I mostly followed it, Eric. So is there anything you need from us in regards to that?
I don't think so. I need to just get some loans to you to look at, and what I would do is put a summary together of how the program works, and then kind of take it from there, I think.
Can you put that down as an item to bring to the full board, Eric, at our next board meeting, and kind of explain to them that I think that's an exciting, new aspect of our program, and I think we should get the word out.
Yes, and one thing that does, a part of it is also more in-depth credit education, credit building with me. They will be, in order to participate, they will be required to do an in-depth credit budgeting type call with me to kind of go over everything and try to get them a little more situated with their debt, with their credit, and try to make some positive progress with them in the meantime.
So from here on out, we'll need to address you as Professor Reed.
Say that one more time.
I said, so from here on out, we'll need to address you as Professor Reed, correct?
That's right. Exactly.
Well, good deal. Well, Eric, thank you for that information. Any comments or questions, concerns, anything regarding that new program? All right, hearing none, we'll move to closing arguments and public comments. Any closing comments from anyone? I know the meeting's gone a little bit long. I think we've covered a lot of ground. We had a very sticky issue to address. I think we did a good job with it. Anybody with anything? All right, one final call for public comments. Hearing none, I notice Eric put down our next meeting is going to be Thursday, the 10th of October. Our usually scheduled time. Hopefully everyone will be able to make it. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for their participation and Eric for all his continued good work. If we don't have anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. And a second?
A second.
Thank you, Liz. We are adjourned. Y'all have a great day, and y'all be careful out there.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.